Hello and welcome to the TT Podcast, the podcast where we talk to one person from the world of the TT to discuss their lives, their journeys and their ambitions with the greatest motorsporting event in the world. I'm Chris Pritchard, as you know, and opposite me is
your biggest hero.
Kevin Schwantz.
Who?
We know it is. It's Steve Plater. Steve.
Good to be back.
Yeah, pleasure's all mine, I guess.
I'm still stressed.
Go on.
I'm still stressed. Cargo.
Oh, so
Tom.
listeners, last night our producer Tom sent us to Cargo Market in near the Lowry in Manchester, where we record our podcasts. I've never seen a man flap so much. Steve Plater was getting a dab on because he couldn't order his food. He likes a waiter to come up,
It's
take
all
his order.
barcoded, and then when you work through this, I don't know how many different menus just to buy yourself a nice meal, in all fairness. It's ridiculous. And then I had to walk to the bar to buy a drink. What, eh?
Hey, listen, we got our food in the end,
Yes,
and the food was lovely.
Delicious.
So if you are a millennial or a what are we at now? Gen Z, then get yourself down to Cargo. It's not sponsoring the podcast, but it was bloody lovely. Steve, the podcast is back, and today we have got Dave Hewson. Tell me what you know about him.
Weird, really, because he lives very close to me. Lincoln lad. Always speak, always hello, but I don't really know him too well. I don't know too much about his history racing or what he's involved with now. But so it'd be quite a good one. Always seems a little bit of a character, so we'll have to dig deep and see what we can find.
Let's do that now by rolling those titles. Dave Hewson, welcome to the podcast. I've got your crib sheet here that we get from everybody, from our fact. Who's our? Is it Ed in the office, or is it
Phil Wayne?
Is it Phil Wayne that still
man.
does these?
He's the main man, top fella. My right hand man.
He's a bit of a legend, is Phil, isn't he?
Yeah, mate, he knows his stuff.
Do you know
He
what?
does.
Just before we get into this, I didn't know who Phil Wayne was. So for the past couple of years, he's been coming into the office at the TT, sits down, does his work. I say hello to him. No idea who he was or what he did. But I always used to hear about Phil Wayne and his stats and knows everything.
He's our stato.
He was there. And not one point did I say to him, hey, Phil, give us some info.
Yeah, probably that was the way it was, because he didn't know who you was either.
No, true.
Who is he?
Yeah.
Doris.
So, all right.
My Doris.
Well, yeah. All right, here we go. Well, I was going to big you up here, Dave, but I don't think I will now. TT debut. We don't care anymore.
No, we don't.
TT
No.
starts, not bothered.
No, nobody cares.
Love it.
I'm pleased
Who
we
are
started
you?
this on the right level.
No. Let's give you the credit. The credit is due because like we say and everybody says, anybody that takes to that start line is an absolute hero.
Hey, credit to start with. It's not perfect weather then. He's ridden in all the way from not so sunny Lincoln. Fair play to you.
Yeah, my hands are nearly warmed up now.
Good. They'll be warm by the end of this. TT debut, 2007. Race starts at the TT 66, finishes 58. That's not a bad hit rate, that.
Interesting. I've actually got I've done my stats at home. When I quit, I did an Excel sheet because I do quite like an Excel sheet because I can be that boring. And actually, I had it down as 57 finishes because there was one or two that I couldn't find the result sheets for. So it's good that you've got 58. I'm taking 58.
We may as well take 58.
Yeah.
Fastest personal lap at the TT, what have you got?
123.1.
5.8. Happy with that?
It standard motorbike racer answer.
Never happy.
No. I always had it in my head that I could go a little bit faster.
Yeah.
But then the sensible bit in my head said, no, you can't.
Always the case. Right,
It is.
Dave, with all due respect, like I say, you're an absolute TT hero in my eyes, but there may be some people
Who don't know who I am.
that don't know who you are.
Yeah.
So how would you, before we get into the podcast and we talk about the main question of the podcast and we know how much you love the podcast and how you've listened to every single episode.
Of course, yeah.
So you know what
This
question
is
is
episode
coming.
2, isn't it?
Yeah. Give us a brief outline as to who Dave Hewson is.
Right. I am. I do mechanical engineering. Where to start almost, isn't it? Basically, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, a load of my mates who were a year older than me got scooters at 16, and nobody in my family had ever done motorbikes. And so I turned 16, I got myself a Yamaha jog from Webb's in Lincoln. It was 300 quid, and I think I was done over. And, it just gave you this freedom that you'd never had before. And I decided I quite like motorbikes. And then, of course, some of my mates were getting 125s, and I ended up doing like Saturday jobs at Italia Moto in Lincoln.
Yep.
literally polishing bikes and making tea. And I don't drink tea, so my tea is terrible.
Oh dear.
So I didn't last that long there. But they had Aprilias and Ducatis and stuff, and I basically then started an apprenticeship when I was really 16, doing mechanical engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And with my apprenticeship money, I bought an RS125 Aprilia, which I then proceeded to crash into a couple of cars. And
At 17?
oh yeah,
That was the dream, that bike, weren't it?
Oh,
At
it was, yeah.
17. Oh,
it was awesome. It
yeah.
was awesome. A mate of mine, his cousin's got it in a shed somewhere. And
Your old bike?
Yeah, and I want it back. That needs restoring.
Yeah.
I'm repairing by the sounds of it.
Well, yeah, an element of that, yeah. But it was cool. Biaggi Rep Chesterfield one.
Yeah.
Really smart thing.
97, 98?
Yeah, 97, yeah.
So that was before they went to that new shape in 99.
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah.
Nice,
Mine was
the
an
nice
early
shape,
shape
the old
one.
shape.
Yeah, proper thing.
Yeah, I crashed one of them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
first time the shop ever let me borrow one.
I'm not surprised.
He let me borrow one, and one of the mechanics was on a CBR 600 going down the Sheffield Parkway. There's a little tight, but it's not even tight, it's just a bit of a right-hander. He rolls off for it. I was on this 125, I was old Billy, big bollocks.
Yeah.
Flat out, straight into it, back of him.
You're not filling me full
With
of confidence for Sunday. Tell him what you're doing on Sunday.
Well, this podcast isn't about me, but
Tell him.
Oh, no, come on.
I am obtaining my ACU license. I'm off to Three Sisters to do my course.
Did I say I'm retiring from all racing?
He's going to try and obtain.
That's why you retired. You heard I was coming. Got to get out of his way. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
No. Right, yeah, so did the 125 thing. Then I did me bike test, which then you could have 33 horsepower or whatever when you first passed, but you could restrict bigger stuff. Mm-hmm. And the restrictor was a piece of paper. So I bought an RVF 400,
Nice.
which was awesome. Crashed that as well on the road. Crashed that on the road trying to make a home video with my mate. And cool section of road, but it turns out if you really commit on one of them things, you can get the side stand pivot and the exhaust pipes on the floor.
Right.
And then when you open the throttle, there's not a lot of grip. So that got thrown into the back of my mate's car. Then we cobbled it back together, did a couple of track days on it, and had this thing of like, I'm quite enjoying this. This is loads better. Because the ride home from your first track day is terrible. Because you think you're fast on the road, and then you've been going flat out all day, and you ride home, think you're going fast, going, there's cars and stuff, and I don't know what's around the corner, and you go, oh, I need to ride on track more.
Yeah.
So did my ACU license, turned up on a racetrack with a really, we literally chucked a set of fiberglass bodywork at this RVF and bought a van for 750 quid and went racing.
Where was your
I
first
love
meeting?
that.
Snetterton.
Yeah.
April Fool's Day, 2000.
Really?
Yeah. I should have known, shouldn't I?
So back in 2000, what you would have been quick maths 1920, yeah.
Yeah, 19.
Oh wow. So you got bitten by the bug pretty much straight away.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no family history of motorcycling.
My granddad on my mum's side, there's photos of him riding a Scott.
Right.
Back in back when they were new.
Squirrel. Scott Squirrel.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not as old as you, Steve.
Yeah,
I don't
that's-
remember
that's-
that.
that's-
I know I've ridden one and crashed.
Yeah.
Steve's era. Right. So you're not from motorcycle pedigree.
No.
But you found motorcycles.
Yeah.
And we'll get into the whole story of how we got to the TT. But we must regress or fast forward, however you want to call it, to the point of being at the TT. Because the question that we always ask the same people every time they come in, it's normally the first question that we start with. But, we kind of
We've got
roll.
off piste already, haven't
Jump
we?
the gun.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's the question about getting the tap on the shoulder and entering no man's land. What I seem to find, I don't know if it's because we've asked the same question so many times, Steve, but we seem to get the same answer. No pressure to change your answer, but it might be different coming from you because
everybody else is fast.
no, I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say you have to experience it slightly different because you hear a lot of bikes going off first.
Yes.
So like the race has kind of started before you've
maybe
even put your helmet on.
Yeah.
So take us into no man's land. Maybe 20 bikes have gone off the road.
Yeah.
So it must have a slightly different feeling hearing those engines, hearing that speed, knowing that you're going to be heading down there. So what does it feel like once you've rolled out of the start line into no man's land? You get that grab of the shoulder. You're waiting for that flag to drop. You're waiting for that guy to tap you on the shoulder. What kind of feelings have you experienced through the years of racing the TT?
Once I got into no man's land, that's when I'm focusing ahead.
Yeah.
It's the hour before that I actually
Everybody says
hate.
the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so that was all. I didn't listen to the podcast. I've still got the same answer. Do I get a point for that one?
But it makes sense why people
Yeah.
say that.
But it's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's because by that point you're on your own. It's you and your bike. Your bike's running. Everything's focused. It's just last couple of little stretches or whatever, and getting your eye in. But it's the 10 minutes before that's bizarre.
Yeah.
Because especially when you're hearing the bikes go off. My first TT, I think I was number 88.
That's a lot of bikes.
John McGuinness and Steve and people. Well, you were a newcomer that year, weren't you?
Yeah, 07, yeah. The centenary. Yeah.
Steve was 3/4 of the way around the lap by the time I started.
Which is bizarre.
It
when
is,
you think about it, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have as bigger numbers now, do we? But
No, that's right, yeah.
yeah, you're aware that they've been going for a while before I've even put my helmet on and pushed my bike up the road.
Yeah.
And my first TT, there was a few damp patches, I think. And Kev, who was sparring for us, he did we'll put an inter front in so you can commit everywhere and you're a bit more comfortable.
Commit.
Yeah.
An inter front.
Yeah, just I wasn't going fast enough to overheat it, so it was all right. But I think it was.
What bike was it? Your first?
06 ZX10.
Yeah.
A wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
Awful. I mean, really fast in a straight line, but did nothing else well at all.
Yeah.
But it was fast. So, yeah. But I'd done a couple of years at Superstock, so I was used to riding a big bike.
Yeah.
And so, I rocked up just literally with that and a spare pair of wheels and some idea where I was going.
A rough idea.
Yeah.
So it's less about getting the tap on the shoulder and feeling free and going and those nerves going. It's almost getting into no man's land, isn't it? That's where most people say. Was that the same for you, Steve?
Yeah, pretty much
As soon
so.
as you're into no man's land and you're on your own and you've got no one around.
Once you run into no
changes.
man's land, your head goes into overdrive because you're thinking, trying not to forget anything, focusing on quarter bridge and obviously cold tyres, cold everything, getting up to pace and so on. Have you remembered everything? Tear offs, everything's all done. Helmet, this, that, blah blah. So there's an awful lot going through your head. Plus you're nervous, obviously. So there's an awful lot going through you, and click your fingers. You're waiting for the flag to move. That's how fast it goes. But it's like
you see, mine was always slightly different. Probably because I wasn't expecting myself to go and win. It's like I wasn't thinking about tear offs or anything else. It's like in my head that was all done an hour ago. I know everything's ready, and when I get into no man's land, it was just try and calm down and get your breathing under control. And it's like I was quite chilled, but just the nerves are going, your heart rate's up, and just almost trying to calm myself down more than anything else, and just
All right, so rewind an hour then before that. What are we experiencing? What are we feeling?
Oh, the toilet.
Experiencing the toilet. And they got rid of those two toilets at the top of pit lane as well. I'm sure they got rid of them and they've put them somewhere else. You have to walk a lot further now.
Oh no, the trick is when you're in the holding area, the trick is go to the Halewood Centre. Because the toilets in the back of the Halewood Centre are clean, they're nice, door locks, you don't have to do the Portaloo. That's just, it's worth the extra 20 seconds walk. So, if next year, if everybody's in that toilet,
you know why?
I've done myself over.
But I guess we'll get onto it soon. You won't be there racing again.
No.
Or will we?
I keep saying no. If I keep saying no, I might believe myself.
Oh, really?
Oh, itchy feet.
Yeah, I think so. So look, before we get into that and the whole, deciding to stop the TT, let's go through your TT journey. So,
now, first of all, sorry, Chris, jump in.
But
in the first place, obviously, you've spoken about track daying.
Yeah.
Getting the buzz, getting the negative riding on public open roads because you can't go fast enough, cars coming in and so on. Bit of racing. You went off to do your first race. What flicked the switch for you to go to the Isle of Man TT in the first place?
That's an odd one because the TT had never really been on my radar. When I started club racing and stuff, I knew people who went to the TT. And, it was I think it was probably more the history of everybody talks about the TT. It's almost mythical, isn't it? It's this big thing that I couldn't possibly do because I'm just a bloke who made bad tea in a bike shop when I was 16. It was like, and in my head I couldn't go to the TT. Like it was the three pinnacles of motorbiking as I see them are MotoGP, TT, Dakar. depending on your version of... If you ride off-road, I don't do a lot of off-road riding, but if you ride off-road, to me, Dakar surely is the pinnacle.
Yeah.
If you're purely short-circuit racing, it's got to be MotoGP.
Mm-hmm.
And if you road ride and whatever, it's got to be TT. And so when I started out, this concept that I could go and do something like that was fanciful. And I went over and my mate was racing classic 250. I had a 250 Ducati single, about 12 horsepower or something. And he lived down the road from me. He was my driving instructor, in fact, Alan.
It wasn't as fast as the jog.
No, it was about the same, I suspect. And he was going over doing the Manx. And I was like, I'm just going to go over on my road bike. And we literally did finish BSB weekend, chuck a rucksack on my ZXR 750 and hack across to Liverpool or wherever and jump on the ferry and went and hung out with him for a few days. And the first trip over, it just rained the whole time I was there. It was miserable. And I'd done a lap in his van and I couldn't comprehend how you'd learn 38 mile a track. And especially because on his 250 cat, he'd come out of Sarah's cottage and he'd be like, right, you're flat out here. And I think he was flat out till Ramsey Hairpin. I mean, and you're just doing that thing where you're going, I think the transit van, was actually quicker than his Ducati. And there was one brilliant bit where we're going past the K tree and he goes, oh, you've got to watch out here. There's a K painted on the tree and the curb sticks out, but I've never worked out what the K's for. Then his missus is sat in the van and just goes, well, it's K for curb, isn't it? And it was the most obvious thing.
That's quite worrying. Eh?
Yeah, he was my driving instructor.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I didn't pass first time. And I actually went home the first time, and my mate Kev, who'd run people at the Manx for years, and it was was helping me out with a few bits here and there. He goes, "Oh, how was it? What do you think to it?" And I just went, "Oh, I'm not interested." I went,
No?
I couldn't get my head round it. But the second year, I went back to the Manx the next year. And I did a few more laps and the weather was better, and one of his mates towed me round for a lap or whatever. And after a couple of laps, you realise that, especially over the mountain, nothing jumps out at you. You can see it. There's no weird hairpins or anything. And before my ferry home, my ferry home was in the evening. So I went for a last lap, and I set off from the grandstand about 7 o'clock or something. And I don't think I saw another car for pretty much the whole lap. Cool. And I had this run over the mountain on this old ZXR 750.
Nice.
And the sun's setting, and there's no traffic, and I've got the flow going. And I can remember going like Brandywell, thinking, bugger. Yeah. I get it now.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is going to go downhill, isn't it? I'd met Milky a couple of times in passing because his missus is from Lincoln area.
Yeah.
And he come to the last BSB round, and he was wandering around the paddock basically getting new riders for TT or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I said, Milky, quite fancy going and race the Isle of Man. I said, Manx Grand Prix or TT? And he went, you'll be fast enough for TT. Come straight to TT.
Did he?
And it was like literally that and an email to Paul Phillips, and that was it. I was in.
Brilliant.
And then there's a moment where you get this email from Paul Phillips. I was at work. I was sat in the test bay at Siemens. And I get this email through back in the day when emails were new, weren't they?
Yeah.
I get this email through going, we'd love to have you at TT. And I had that moment where I sort of sat down and went, oh, crap.
Yeah. Oh,
what have we done?
Yeah. I'm going to be a TT racer and I have literally no idea what I'm doing.
So at that point, where were you racing? What level of British Superbikes were you racing at?
I was doing Superstock Championship. Back then, there was 2 grids full of Superstock bikes.
Yep.
And I'd done Superstock Cup the year before. I'd had a couple of top 5s. I think I was 9th in the championship or something. And then stepped up to Superstock Championship, so in with the big boys. So I was in my second year of doing that, and I was crashing a bit more because I was trying to keep up with people. And I was paying for it all out, me wages from my apprenticeship sort of thing. And, well, actually, no, I was full-time by then, but yeah, I was spending more on crash damage and tyres than I was earning. And I was sort of beginning to lose the love of the short circuits because it was costing me too much, and I knew I wasn't going to win. Yeah. And you know, every time you're picking your bike out of the gravel, you kind of lose a little bit of the love.
Yeah, I bet. Especially when you know it's coming out of your pocket.
Yeah. And so then you have that thing in your head where you go, I'm going to go to TT. I'm just going to do it once. Just going to tick that box. And 15 years later.
It gets you though, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, I don't even ride it, and it's got me.
Yeah.
So, I know exactly the feeling. So then you get the email from Paul.
Yeah.
you think, oh shit, now
Yeah,
I've got
here
to
we
commit
go.
to this. Back then, was the support from Milky and Barty?
It was slightly different, but you did get quite a lot of support. And
Yeah.
especially even going from doing British Championship, where unless you're in Superbike class, you're basically just paying everybody's wages.
Yeah.
frankly. So going from somewhere where you were a second-class citizen to, a few days later, a box turns up in the post with a load of onboard DVDs and stuff, so you can learn it, and you get these things going. Oh, if you want to come over for a weekend, we'll get you flights. We'll stick you up in the Hilton. We'll get Connor to take you for a lap or two. When you're going, hang on, these people actually want me here.
Yeah.
And like Paul and Milky, everybody knew your name.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, well, this is a revelation. And it's
Yes.
like, these people actually want me here. So slightly different setup to today.
Yeah.
But the sort of the basic bones of it with there, it was just, I think, a bit more relaxed almost.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I did a few trips over and I did a lot of onboards. And I even had the old MCN circuit guide.
Cool.
And it had a circuit guide of the TT, and it was like section by section.
Did it?
Yeah, to explaining how to ride each section. You think, who on earth wrote this?
Yeah.
Just,
Who did write that? Do you know?
I have no idea.
That'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, I don't know where my copy's gone, but I bet if I read it now, it'd seem strange.
What was the favourite for you? Riding around the course or onboards?
I learnt more from the onboards
Right. Yeah.
because my favourite one was McGuinness from 05 on the Amy Yamaha.
Yeah.
Because John's so smooth, he'd like flow through everything, and like it just all looked completely under control, and there always seemed to be a bit of road spare, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it was just nice. And then I'd watch, say, I think it was Guy's lap from the year after on the same bike,
Yep.
and Guy said he was faster, but there were certain places like Quarry Bends where Guy was obviously faster in,
Yeah.
but John was so smooth that he probably
Over the
made
section.
up so
Yes.
much more
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
way out. And so I kept doing that lap. I knew where John changed gear. I knew his braking markers. But then I had to go and ride it on the road because the lens from the onboard distorts it. So you do the onboards, and then you go and ride it for real and go, oh, it's much narrower. And the hills are much steeper. So yeah, it's like all the reference markers were there, but they look different. So
Yeah.
you've got to
Yeah.
do both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get
So
you, mate. Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, it's never the same until you ride it anyway.
No.
But it's
No.
just
And as soon as
case
you can ride it using the other side of the road, that helps, doesn't it?
Yeah. Massively. Yeah.
So, all right then. So let's get to the point where we ride it for the first time. Again, is it a controlled lap behind Milky?
It was behind a TM.
Right.
On the TMs were on VFR 800s.
Yeah.
And I was first of our pack because there was a good few newcomers that year. About 12 or 15 of us or something.
Oh, no.
There's you, me, Keith and Moore.
Keith Moore, Jimmy Moore, the American lad, he
That's
was
right,
newcomer.
Jimmy, yeah. Yeah.
Gary Johnson,
Gaz, I believe. Yeah.
yeah, and then there was a few others.
It was Michael's first year as well, I think. He done the Manx.
He'd done the Manx, so he didn't count.
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah, he was. Well, yeah, he didn't have to do the newcomer stuff
He
with
was
us,
an
did
expert.
he? Yeah.
So before we just
Yeah.
rolling back a second before we get into what the lap was like, how did it feel being at? Because essentially you're Steve Plater is no better at the TT than you are at that point, but clearly is a doer. And
Yeah.
a couple of others. I don't know at that point what Gaz Johnson had been doing. Keith and Moore had been
Hey,
doing the
Keith was
road.
good.
So
Keith was fast
good.
and
Yeah.
Gaz was fast, and obviously
Yeah.
Michael.
Yeah, and I'd known Gary for years. Again, similar area, and
Yeah.
we'd club raced against him, and then he'd gone off and won a Super Sport Cup title at British
yeah.
and stuff. So it's like I knew these guys, and I knew they're fast.
Did you feel a little, not necessarily out of place, but like, oh, should I be here, or
The nice
did
thing
you
was
feel
it
confident in it?
almost.
in your
I
ability?
think it almost took the nerves away
Yeah.
because the focus was never going to be on me.
Right. You
Like,
could just
Even our
do your
local,
thing.
Helen Bask, who did
Yeah,
our
yeah.
press stuff.
Yep.
It's like because I was the last of the Lincolnshire lads, sort of thing, as newcomers. It was like there'd be a whole article on Steve and Gary, and at the bottom of it, Dave Hewson was there too. But
Dave did a few laps.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, he rode around at the back somewhere. But it was. It almost. I knew I wasn't going to be at the front with these boys.
Yeah.
So it took the pressure off that, like, if it had been just me, I think there'd have been more pressure on you've got to perform because you're the newcomer and everybody's looking. But
Yeah.
actually, when there's a load of you, just go out and ride around and don't do a
Yeah,
daft.
Yeah,
really.
I weren't too sure if you'd feel like added pressure in the fact that you're although you're all setting off at different times and you probably never see them again, Like,
I think I saw them when they lapped me sometimes.
but being in the same race as someone like that, I'd get intimidated. I remember when we used to do like Supermoto, and Dave Jeffries would turn up and just have a go, and Chris Hidden would be there, and James Ellison, and you're never going to see him, but you'd be like, you'd be shit scared that because they were in that same race, were you not fazed by the fact that McGuinness is in there?
No, not really. No,
Right,
it was
okay.
just, to me, it was, they're almost in a different race.
You're doing your own race.
Yeah, and it's especially with the TT is, because you're setting off on your own, it's you and the track.
Yeah.
And it's the other guy can just do whatever they need to do.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just me. And if I ride the track to my own ability, I'm going to be somewhere near.
Yeah.
And then if the fast buyers are coming past, then I'll try and do something. I'll try and be in the right place so they can get past easy enough.
Yeah.
So you've gone through all your nerves, pre-practice.
Yeah.
And you get your first lap behind the travelling marshal. How was that at the end of that lap?
So I'm the first one in the group. And so I'm doing that thing where I was like, I'm on a faster bike than the TM. I have to cross the finish line right on his back wheel. But through like signposting governors.
Yeah.
So he's pulled a little bit on me because they're so smooth and it's like they're actually really hard to judge the speed of a TM because the brake lights almost never come on. And they're just sort of sat there and they're riding at 50%, aren't they? And I come around the nook and I'm like, right, I'm going to make sure I'm right on his tail. So I nail it round the nook, hit the brakes for governors, and he, of course, swings out really wide. And I've so nearly T-boned him on the brakes. Oh, we're talking inches away from T-boning the T. I mean, he probably never knew. And I shuffled around. I must have had my foot down at some point around governor. I was thinking, bloody hell, this could be embarrassing. So then I had to have a really good run out of governors to still be somewhere near him.
Did you spend that whole lap thinking, I need to be on the back of him, looking at him, or are you taking things in going, oh, I know this bit, this is where I need to do this, and this is where I need to do that? Or were you just like, I'm sticking to the back of him?
I mean, it's a while back. I can't entirely remember. But no, I think because I knew where I was going.
Well, did you know where you were going?
Yeah, I did.
It all came to you and you knew where you were at any point.
Yeah, I was confident I'd done enough homework that I knew exactly where I was. And the TM was riding like McGuinness rode in the video, just slower.
Yeah.
So it was like, I was just going through the cycle in my head of like, sixth, down a gear. I'm expecting him to brake a little bit and just sort of flow behind him. And so I didn't really feel I had to look too hard at my markers because I did know what was coming. So it was all right. It's just the oddity where they only show you the brake lights 3 times a lap.
Yeah, that's all.
Which is really odd because you go from short circuit where every corner it's brakes, down a gear or 2, tip in, back on throttle. It's like you get to TT and you just roll off and tip in or just don't even roll off.
Yeah.
You get like Dorans or somewhere and they just throw it in the corner. You're like, right, okay. It's quite a different way of riding. So yeah, that's educational.
And there was no fear afterwards because we've seen newcomers come in and their eyes are on stalks and they're like, oh yeah, I got lost a few times. I didn't know where I was going. I've heard that when they've been talking to Milky in the past. But there was no not regret, but there was no point of view that was like, this is too much for me.
No, I was
done it. You were like, this is.
I was cool with it. Yeah. I'm not sure whether I enjoyed it. I think it's an experience, but it's quite intense.
Yeah.
And so you get to the end of it and go, right. But then the only thing I really wanted to do was go and do a lap on my own, because I've always found it easier when there's nobody in front of you. So you learn a circuit and you put all this time and effort in, but you've got to go and see it for yourself. You've got to see it firsthand.
So fast forward on a little bit. You rode the ZX10 the first year. Was that super stock? So you rode super stock and superbike on the same. Yeah, cool. So you got a fair bit of mileage during practice. Obviously, 07 was fabulous weather. There was no rain. It was sunny for the whole 2 weeks.
We just thought that's what the Isle of Man was like.
Exactly. There's a lovely black line all the way around showing you the line, which made it a little bit easier for sure. But so you went through your whole first year there. Of course, no bad weather, no aggro, just learning.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the 2 weeks, when the seniors finished on the Friday, on the Saturday, sorry, what was your feeling? Did you know you'd be going back year in, year out from then on, or was you still a little bit tentative, or what was your feeling at the end of it?
I sort of remember the first year that I didn't feel like I was racing. I felt like I was riding round because I didn't have the confidence and I didn't have I wasn't relaxed enough to just let it all flow together. And so I was going okay, but there was so much safety margin everywhere and I was just putting the bits together. But it was the last lap of the senior. I went through the Bowman Bagara and I went through and I only used half the road and I just thought, I've not done that right yet, so I'm going to have to come back. And that was halfway through the last lap. And so it's like, at that point, you're like, well, I'm coming back then, aren't I? So, yeah, then it had to be done because
fair play.
you've got to go and try and do it a bit better.
Not because of the buzz of it, not because of the fact that it's like a drug to a racer and you just need to feel that speed.
Got to do it better.
You were like, oh, I can do that better.
So year 2, what was the mindset?
Yeah, do it better.
Just
Yeah,
purely,
basically,
just purely
yeah.
to improve your lap times and...
Yeah, I just wanted to. I knew I could go quicker because I knew I'd left so much safety margin everywhere that I knew there was a load more to go. I didn't know how much, but I knew I could go quicker. So it was very much I just want to go back and I just want to put all the pieces together a bit better.
That's what makes the TT so magical. The fact that you're not going back there to go, do you know what, I want to finish top 20. I want to try and win this. I want to try and better myself. And you're literally just going there solely to try and take on that course and do it slightly better than you did last year.
Yeah, and especially with TT because it's the biggest thing about TT, other than it might be different for Steve, the position might matter to Steve. To me, the position never really mattered. It was the lap speed. All you were really interested in was that single lap speed. And so I went home the first year, I'd done 113, I think, which was all right, but it wasn't out special. And then you go, well, I know I can go faster.
Cheer saying out.
Out special.
Yes, mate.
Me duck. Yeah, so it's like, no, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do better at this. And I'm just going to chip away and see where we end up, really.
So let's say you went back there and you got Bagaro right in the second year and you got everything
Better.
Betterer.
Yeah.
Could you have gone, I'm at my limit here, that's as far as I can go? Or would you go, right, let me see if I can do this slightly better on a better bike?
Well, the second year, I'd had a good year at work. I'd started out working, so I was travelling the world by then. And it's the first time I'd ever actually had any money in the bank. And what I should have done was gone and bought a house.
Yeah.
What I went and did was bought 2 brand new Kawasaki's.
Good lad.
So turns out, actually, it was a perfect... That was a much better investment because it was 2008 and the economy crashed.
Yep.
Yeah.
If I'd have bought a house, I'd have been right knackered.
Yep, and no TT.
Yeah, whereas, I bought an 08 ZX10 that I still own today and a ZX6. Prepped them both up and we went back and the ZX10 was... The 08 bike was night and day better than the wheelbarrow. Mm-hmm. And I went back and then I did 120 my second year, which I'd never thought I'd go that quick.
Huge jump.
Massive, isn't it?
I think my first night of practice I went faster than I went the whole first year.
Yeah.
Blooming hell.
I think I did 114 first night and the bike handled and it was fast. And I just went,
did it come to you? Did it feel easier than it ever did? Yeah.
Yeah, whether it was some of it was bike and some of it was just you've had a year to let everything soak in and process. And I've been over and done more laps and just it was the confidence thing to go, right, I do actually know where I'm going. I do know how to do this. So just, crack on with it and, built it up step by step. 120 in the senior, happiest man in the world. And then you go, actually, I can have a go at this.
Yeah.
And it's almost, then the drug hits a bit more because then you're going faster.
There's a 121 in there.
That's the problem, That's the problem. You do I can go quicker than this. I can go a bit faster and maybe I can get a few more positions. And yeah.
Do you start looking at positions then? And do you kind of like look at who you're racing against in the first year? When they turn up in the second year, you're like, right, I want to be trying to beat those guys now. I know you said position doesn't matter, but you soon find a group or a gaggle of riders that are similar in ability and similar speeds that you start wanting to one up against.
Yeah, like the first year there was a lad called Steve Harper, did TT and Manx for a good few years. Mm-hmm. And my first year he was right, like my mate Kev was helping him out as well a bit. And he'd done 118 and he'd like placed reasonably well. And in my head I was like, if I can get somewhere near that speed. Second year I was faster than him. Yeah. I'd beaten his lap time and I was like, right, we can have a go at this. Right, who's next on the list?
Yeah.
Did you have anybody helping you? You know, obviously you had Milky Quail and Johnny Barton the first year, chipping away, doing things behind the scenes. But from then on, did you have any ex-racers or experienced TT riders that were chipping and helping you out?
Not really.
On the sidelines,
no, just it was. I think it was a bit more. There was a bit less structure then.
Yeah.
And so it was just now I'm just going to go and I'm going to learn this myself and I'm just going to chip away at it and I'm just going to keep going basically and learn it yourself, don't you?
During all this time.
Yeah.
During the war.
Yeah. Back in the good old days when all this was fields.
Were you competing in any other road races? Or is it purely TT, time trial?
The first year, the only thing I was interested in was TT. Like, I wasn't interested in the Northwest. I almost didn't know the Ulster Grand Prix was a thing. It was like it had almost passed me by. But the end of the first year, end of 07, I went and did Gold Cup on me ZX10, on my wheelbarrow, and I won the B final. So I've got a picture of me crossing the line in front of Davey Morgan.
Flipping heck.
Because Davey, there used to be a bit of a system at Scarborough when Ellaby was running it, of certain riders, like if you were a big enough name, you were guaranteed a spot in the A final.
Yeah. But
they still had this weird qualifying system where you still had to qualify. But if you didn't quite qualify, they'd put you on the grid anyway. So Davey was one of the names where they went, well, he's a big enough name, we'll put him in the A final. Mm-hmm. So what he'd do is purposely qualify for the B final, because if you won the B final, you got 50 quid.
Oh, nice.
Oh, mega, yeah.
So he'd drop into the B final, win his 50 quid, that'd pay for his lad's beer and the boat on the way home. And then he'd do the A final anyway. So it's like win-win, innit?
Mega.
And but he thought it was an 8-lap race. Turns out it was a 6-lap race. And at Scarborough, they don't show the last lap flag. Because they don't, or they didn't, because they didn't want people doing kamikaze moves into the airpins. Yeah. So I crossed the finish line. I didn't know it was the last lap either. I just saw a checkered flag. It was like, by heck, I've won this. First time there. Big celebration, fist pump over the line. I've got it. Davey's behind me, really annoyed that I've cost him 50 quid.
There you go. Tough.
Yeah, bloody brilliant.
Brilliant.
Yeah. 08 when I went back, I did Northwest, then TT, then Ulster at the end of the year. I think I did 3 Scarboroughs or whatever, and I got right into the whole road race thing.
Yeah, fair play. Because I read, the reason why I asked that, I'm just looking here down my notes, Mexico, San Pedro Martyr Hill Climb and Nevada International Tourist Cup. What's all that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, they're proper events, they are.
What exactly are they?
Right, a lot of my stories start with Eric. Eric Wilson, TT racer for years, one of my best mates, and Eric loves an adventure. Eric has this thing where he just wants to go and do stuff while he has the chance, which is a great way to live life. So a few years ago, I did I did coast to coast across the States when he went to do Pikes Peak, and then he went, I found this hill climb in Mexico. And you think, this could never go wrong, could it? So he's done, when he did Pikes Peak, he did the world's highest hill climb. And then San Pedro Martyr is the world's longest hill climb. It's 19 kilometres. In the mountains in Baja,
for the listeners,
California.
I guess this hill climb is on a stopwatch, so it's not just a climb hill, it's the fastest person up it.
Oh, it is, yeah. It's competitive.
Yep.
I'm not even sure stopwatches are used, if I'm honest. It's a bit, the timekeeping.
Egg timers?
The timing's a bit hit and miss. Well, put it this way, when I did it, I pressed my stopwatch, my lap time thing when I set off, and I got to the other end and finished it, and the lap time they had me at was about 30 seconds different.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But theirs was faster, so I took it.
That'll do.
Yeah, so Eric had this thing, he was like, I want to go and do this hill climb. So the first year I just went with him to Spanner. And it's quite cool. Mark Miller was there, and you get to know a few people. There's, a couple of dozen people doing it. It's quite exclusive, but it's in the hills in Baja, Mexico, which is a stunning part of the world.
Yeah.
And it's just cool. It's a little adventure. So the next year, they're like, all right, I'm going to do it as well. One of the American lads we met went, I'll lend you a bike. I said, I don't really care what it is. And it turns out it was his BM.
God, nice.
So it's the same bike I've got at home. So I took my forks and my shock out of my bike and took them in my hand luggage. So it handled like my bike. And put them in. And the Baja International Tourist Cup is, I can't remember what it is. It's 5 or 6 mile long.
Yeah.
So imagine Tandragee in the sunshine with half the road covered in gravel and about 4 marshals for the whole place and a lot of jagged rocks. It's exciting, but it's fast. Like, we worked out Eric's fastest lap round there, because he's lap record holder, was faster than his fastest ever lap at TT. Yeah, he averaged like 125 for a lap round
the
the bar.
average speed.
Yeah. Yeah, with dust and...
Must start?
No, luckily it's...
Right.
Luckily not. But it's odd, because they'll close the road, and this is literally the main... a section of it is the main road from 2 of the big towns in Baja, Mexico. So it's like closing the A1. So they literally just...
How long ago is this?
Oh, a couple of years.
Oh, flipping.
They still do it now.
Still going on.
Yeah.
Steve's there. Steve's
yeah.
going.
Yeah, and they literally, they just get a policeman to stand at the end of the road, and he blocks the traffic off on this main road for 20 minutes, so that a couple of dozen foreign lads can just go herring around on motorbikes. and it's
Love it.
the where the start line is the village. The guy who organised it, Pedro, hadn't even told them that this was going on. So two of these two old boys come down and they're stood at the bus stop, which if you'd have high-sided out the first corner, you'd have collected the entire bus queue. And they're stood there, the race has started. And these two old boys have just stood there. And he's like, who's going to tell them the bus ain't coming? Because we're stood in the racetrack. And you go and do this race and it's Larry. But I did that thing where I was like, I know this is sketchy, I know there's not that much grip, so I'm just going to sort of ride around and keep it relatively safe, and I think I was third.
Cool.
But there's a section that goes up like the main highway, so it's like 3-4 lane, big open, relatively new tarmac, and it's so fast. It's faster than like the Ulster section. It's mega, and then you go onto the back roads that's barely tarmacked.
Yeah.
It's
Bloody hell.
yeah, it's exciting. So that's the Baja International Tourist Cup, and then the hill climb is the same guy, Pedro, organises that as well. And you like the launch of the start area is like near this ranch. I can't remember the name of the ranch, and it's this fantastic, proper Wild West setup. Mm-hmm. And you trace up to the top of the road, and one by one you set up the hill, and the scenery's stunning, and the road leads to an observatory that a load of different nations have paid for. So the road going up to it's in decent condition because it's actually kept nice. And you just do this 19-kilometre hill climb, and it's spectacular.
God, 19k.
Do you know where you're going on it then, or not?
No.
It's not something you can go and recce every now and again, is it? Over the winter.
Well, actually, quite a lot of the American lads. There's a couple of lads from San Diego and places. They'll actually ride down. It's like a 3 or 4 hour ride down, and they'll just ride up and down it.
I do that though.
No. Luckily, by this point, we had some onboards, and I'd watched a couple of the onboards, and there's like 3 corners that'll catch you out that are really, really decreasing radius. Mm-hmm. So I just learned where they were, and the rest of it's probably okay.
Yeah.
So just sort of get on with it. It's like road riding. You just like ride from what you see, don't you?
Well, I suppose so, yeah. That sounds terrifying. Do you fancy it, Steve?
Oh, it's good crack.
Well, Jackal on this side says yeah, and then Hyde on this side says no.
All right, we're going to take a quick pause in the podcast there. And if you're wondering why this part of the podcast sounds slightly different to the rest of it, it's because we forgot to record this, and I'm in my house recording this now. If you want to hear what Dave has got to say in the rest of this podcast, make sure you join us for part 2 next week. And in fact, here's a little clip from next week's episode.
I had a moment as I slowed down for a laugh going, do I just pull over?
Yeah.
But then went, no. What I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the race, and I'm going to try and put... This is racer brain coming in. I'm going to try and put a really good last lap together because I want to finish on a high, but I know I'm finishing.
So if you want to hear the rest of that, make sure you join us next week. And if you want all the latest news and features from the Isle of Man TT races, it is of course iomttracers.com on the World Wide Web. And if you want to check us out on all the social platforms, we are at TT Racers Official. Until next time though, bye Steve. See you later, mate.